Brothers and sisters, please welcome to the stage our International Charity Director of the Lewis H. Reed Spinal Cord Injury Fund, Brother Greg Martin.
Good evening. Are you all proud to be an Eagle? I didn't hear you. You all proud to be an Eagle? Well, we got something new this year. We started this past year with the Lewis H. Reed Spinal Cord Injury Fund. How many of you heard of the exoskeleton for paralyzed people? Well, we've been raising funds this past year. And it's going to be run through the Lewis H. Reed Spinal Cord Injury Fund to help our veterans with spinal cord injury. Thank you. Right now, there's over 100,000 veterans with spinal cord injury that are paralyzed. And now there's something that the Fraternal Order of Eagles can do for them. Something that will let them stand up and give their loved ones a hug and a kiss. And we're going to be proud when we purchase these exoskeletons. I'd like to introduce a brother that brought this to me last year at the International Convention. He brought the video, showed it to me. 5 minutes later, we were in front of the Board of Grand Trustees presenting it to the board. They jumped on board right immediately when they seen this. When we showed the video, by the way, the video was sent out in February to all Aries with a letter explaining the benefits of an exoskeleton. And every time we show this, you will be amazed to see the people that can get up and walk with this. I think the average steps when they put one of these suits on is 200 steps for their first time. But I'd like to introduce the brother that brought this to us from San Jose, California, my friend, Grant Beech.
When I became an Eagle, they said, you got to take over and run some fundraiser. Well, I just happened to have had a client who had a son who was in a wheelchair. So I said, okay, I'll do spinal cord. And at that time, Mr. Robert Prieto introduced me to the people at Ekso Bionics. And when I looked at that, I said, this has got to be bigger than what San Jose can do. So when I went to Orlando last year, I got a hold of Greg and I said, got to show this to you. And like he said, before we knew it, we were in waist deep. And I hope that now you can see what those efforts that we've done in the last year have resulted in this new thing that Greg said we're bringing to you tonight. So Greg, you want to introduce Ekso Bionics. Thank you very much.
I would like to just let you all know, which I will be doing this on my report on Tuesday, in February after this was sent out, and I think this is phenomenal that we've already raised in the last, 6-7 months, just about $60,000 for our first year. These units are $150,000 a unit. We will be purchasing these through Soldier Socks. And I know by the time we get here next year, we're going to have a good chunk of money to purchase these for the veterans. And just one other thing that us Fraternal Order of Eagles brothers and sisters can do to help our veterans. So furthermore, I'd like to introduce you to Joe Marcus from Ekso Bionics.
Eagles, it is an honor and a privilege to be here standing in front of you. I have been working now with Grant Beech here for the last several months, bringing us to this point, and I could not be prouder nor more excited. To tell you a little bit about Ekso Bionics and who we are and what we stand for, we were founded about 10 years ago at the University of California, Berkeley Robotics Laboratories, and through funding from the U.S. military, DARPA specifically, we began developing exoskeletons to help our soldiers carry heavy loads into the field. During that time, one of our co-founders whose brother was a U.S. Navy SEAL, got word that his brother, after coming back to the States, broke his neck and was paralyzed. And so he rushed to the hospital on the West Coast to see his brother, and he said, "Brother, don't worry, I'll help you walk again." And he said, "It's not my legs, it's actually my arms that don't work." Fortunately, he recovered, but then nonetheless got us thinking, how do we repurpose what we developed for the military and use it to help people walk again? And so in 2012, we launched the Ekso device, which you'll see here shortly. It is a robotic exoskeleton, a wearable robot, if you will, that enables people who have any sort of a lower limb paralysis or weakness due to spinal cord injury, stroke, multiple sclerosis, and so on, stand and walk again. And for individuals who have some function remaining, it can help them improve and help them relearn how to walk naturally again. For individuals who no longer have the ability to walk, it can improve their overall life by reducing secondary complications, improving overall mental well-being, and it's changing lives. In 2012, there were about 1 million steps taken in the device, only a handful around the world. Today, I'm proud to say we have over 25 million steps taken in the device, over 125 units deployed globally, and this is just the beginning. Through our partnership with Soldier Socks, national nonprofit focused on veterans who we've been working closely with to bring this technology to our veterans, we've begun an amazing journey of ensuring that those who served us in the armed forces have what they need to walk again when they come back on our soil. And so it is with that I am proud and honored to introduce you to Soldier Socks Chairman and co-founder, Chris Meek.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Grant. It's an honor to be here with everyone tonight. And I apologize if I'm a little winded. My flight was 3 hours delayed, and I literally had wheels down at 8:02. So I'm here. My bag's still up at the airport. So I'm sure most of you are wondering how an organization with the word socks in it is involved with funding cutting-edge medical devices. And the story begins back on that dreadful day in early September, nearly 14 years ago. At the time, I was running the floor trading operations for one of the banks in New York, and we were literally across the street from the World Trade Center. By the time we were able to get out of the exchange, the first tower had already fallen, and we couldn't see more than 5 or 6 feet in front of us. We heard jets flying overhead and didn't know whether they were ours or somebody else's. And I remember, as we were making our escape before we left, making the plan, okay, go out, take a left, walk down to the Staten Island Ferry, and go up the East River, so if anything happened, you jump in the water. The biggest memory I have from that day, though, is all the people running into the Trade Center. First responders, there to help. And I knew that I had to do something to give back, but I didn't know how or when. Fast forward to July of 2009, this is our 6th birthday coming up. A friend of mine who was a Marine gave me a copy of a note that he'd received from a Marine then serving in Afghanistan. And the letter simply stated, we're not living on bases, we're living in jeeps and foxholes. We don't have enough water to drink, let alone take a shower. Please send tube socks, because we're hiking all day and we throw the old ones away. And baby wipes for personal hygiene, and so that was their form of a shower. So he came to me and said, Chris, I know you're involved in a few different things, maybe you can do a few care packages. Well, fast forward to today, that letter has sent over 70,000 pounds of basic supplies to 73 units in Iraq and Afghanistan. As the wars wound down, it was the summer of 2012, a few friends of mine said, well, Chris, what's next for Soldier Socks? And I hadn't really thought about it. And I said, well, maybe we'll shelve it for a while and for the next conflict, because unfortunately there's always going to be another conflict. And one of my friends said, what about scholarships? There's some pretty big needs for veterans returning. And so we looked into that, and we found some pretty significant gaps in the post-9/11 GI Bill. And to date, we've awarded $275,000 in scholarship funds. We started to go through a little bit of a rebranding, a new logo. We came up with a new tagline, which was helping service members take their next steps forward. As we broadened our missions, we wanted to start doing the work that was actually in that tagline, And so we thought, okay, how can we actually take the literal sense of taking steps forward? So we first reached out to Paralyzed Veterans of America in Washington, D.C., and couldn't find any initial synergies. And so we shelved the idea for a couple of months, and one of our board members came across an article in Bloomberg Magazine about Ekso Bionics. It was the spring of 2013. I happened to be going out there about a month later on business, and through the modern miracle of social media, reached out to their CEO through LinkedIn and told him a little bit about my story. The next week went out there and met with Russ, who was the designer of the Ekso, and didn't leave without committing to funding 10 of these exoskeleton devices. Now, each suit costs $150,000. We'd never raised that in a year before, let alone $1.5 million, so I had no idea how the hell I was going to do it, but we'd figure it out later. We went on our fundraising crusade and donated our first Ekso device in December of 2013. In December of 2014, exactly 1 year later, we donated our 8th device. So, well on our way. I figured, well, hell, why stop at 10? Let's do 80. So we've committed to 80 devices over the next 3 years. So now I got to worry about $20 million instead of 1.5. You're going to see some amazing technology here with Billy, who's a veteran. And I'm sure once you see what this device can do and how life-changing it is, you'll understand why Soldier Socks does what it does. So again, thank you for having us here tonight. It's an honor to be here and look forward to speaking with you. Thank you.
I'm a veteran. I served at the end of the Vietnam War and the beginning of the Cold War, and was in the Air Force. I was struck by a vehicle. It was an accident. I was paralyzed. I've been paralyzed for the last 40 some odd years. And about 2 years ago, I was fortunate enough to be at a private hospital in Connecticut, and they brought Ekso into the hospital. They asked for volunteers to try Ekso to see how it would work on different kinds of patients. The first time I got up in it, I failed miserably. The second time I got up, I walked. I got a big smile on my face. It was great. I've been walking in it for 2 years now. I've got over 50,000 steps. Still, every time I stand up, I smile and I take a step. It's the greatest thing in the world for people who have never walked before to be able to walk again. And I love it. I keep doing it. I'll go to any fundraiser I can to help Chris and Soldier Socks get these to the rest of the veterans who are coming from Iraq and Iran, and just veterans who have just accidents. It's been proven that it's helping veterans physically. It helps the circulation system. Everybody knows you need to get up and walk to be healthy, but you also need to get up to walk to be mentally healthy also. All the time that I sit down in a chair and I look up and I see everybody go by, now everybody's sitting down and they're watching me stand up. And it's, so I'm going to take some steps into the middle of the stage, and then if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. Ready?
Ready to see him walk?
Thank you.
welcome any questions from the audience, either of Billy or any of us here on stage. I'm not sure. Absolutely. It's evolved tremendously. As I mentioned, when we first developed the technology, it was focused on helping able-bodied soldiers carry a heavy load into the military, into the field. We've since then leveraged that military technology to develop this device. This device now, over the last years, has evolved tremendously as well, such that not only can it now help spinal cord injured patients who are completely paralyzed, but it has evolved to also be beneficial for those who have suffered from a stroke, from multiple sclerosis, from a broad range of neurological injuries or diseases. So the number of individuals who can now be helped with this technology has evolved tremendously. The device that you see here is a clinical rehabilitation device. It is used within hospitals and rehabilitation centers to help individuals like Billy work on rehabilitating their walking, as well as just improving overall wellness. Over time, you will see a lot of evolution in the device in the same way that we've seen televisions go from big boxes to nearly paper thin on the walls, as we've seen our cell phones go from big bricks to supercomputers in our pockets. You will see this technology evolve as well. And moving beyond just the hospital to ultimately being available for individuals at home one day. So the question was, Billy, how far can you walk in the device?
I walk in 1 hour, I walk about 1,500 steps. In the last 2 years, I've got over 50,000 steps. Since Ekso's been going on, we've got over 25 million steps in Ekso since it's been created.
I'm sure there have to be more questions out there.
I use it at a private hospital in Connecticut. I only get to use it once a week. I do other physical therapy on my own, and I try to keep myself in shape. Ideally, I would like to use it every day, but 2 to 3 times a week would be, I think, would be my limit as far as walking. But if I could walk an hour 2 to 3 times a week, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Do you have to have the nurse with you all the time when you walk, or are you able to walk completely on your own?
At this point in the development of the device, I have to have a physical therapist with me at all times, but so I don't mind. I mean, yeah. They don't bother me so much.
He was using the device out back earlier, and he walked up and down the hall, and I asked him, do you feel a little exhausted from this? Tell him what you said to me.
I'm sorry, I missed that, sir.
You were reinvigorated?
Invigorated.
Oh, he didn't hear me. Oh, well, I'll tell you what he said. He said that, no, his whole body feels better. He wasn't exhausted at all from walking, and he walked up and down the hall in the back, and it was the reinvigoration of the entire muscles and organs and everything in his body that made him feel so much better just by doing that walking. And that's what I've heard from everybody who I've talked to that's used it, that all of the benefits are felt within the body, and every time they use it, they feel better. And what I've heard from everybody, that as they stand with the unit, their self-respect rises with them.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely. So we've been working with a number of hospitals and researchers to conduct clinical studies for the last couple of years. Those results are beginning to come out now. The initial studies were focused on overall safety and ensuring the safety and general efficacy of the technology. What we're seeing time and time again is that being upright, and not only upright in a standing frame, for example, but being upright and actually moving and moving through a natural reciprocal gait pattern as you and I would, has tremendous benefits in terms of reducing secondary complications like bowel dysfunction, urinary tract infections, pressure sores, all the things that people who are in a wheelchair day in, day out have to struggle with. And so we're seeing people are having far fewer incidences of those issues. They're going back into the hospital far less frequently. We're seeing improvement in neuropathic pain, which means less pain medication. We're seeing improved psychological function or just general improvement in mental health. So yes, and we'll see a lot more studies forthcoming, but the answer is a resounding absolute yes. No, that's a great question. So the device itself is worn over the body. It has a computer on the back, 2 lithium-ion battery packs to power it, 2 motors at the hips, 2 at the knees, and the device has a variety of sensors throughout it that sense his position in space, if you will. So it senses how much he's leaning to the sides, forward, how much pressure is on his feet, and through that it's able to determine what he's trying to do. And based on that, it can actuate those steps. But before any of that happens, in the very initial phase of walking the device, the physical therapist will actuate the steps through a controller on the back. And as the user becomes more proficient, they can then activate steps with the controller in the crutches, as Billy's doing here. And over time, depending on the amount of function in the device can actuate a step just based on his position in space. But there's no electrical impulse per se, just a lot of sensors throughout the device.
No, it's not shock therapy.
So it's not plugged into him. Not yet, anyway. We haven't told him about that. Oh, absolutely. Every technology throughout history has started off as expensive, and as it was broadly adopted, has come down tremendously. Again, if you think about how much a computer cost back in the day or how much of a television cost back in the initial days and what they cost now, we can see that there's a tremendous reduction in cost. We'll see the same with this device, absolutely. It just takes time like anything.
Proud to serve.
I think there were some other questions, but I know we're out of time here. So what I would say is that I'm here all evening. Find me. I'm happy to talk with anyone, or come find any one of us, and we'd welcome the conversation.
Go Eagles. All set? Okay.
So what do y'all think? I'm just asking each and every one of you to please go back to your area auxiliaries and do a fundraiser this year. And when you do your fundraiser, invite your local veterans in and show the video and sign them up while you got them there. And I tell you, having the privilege and honor of knowing Lou Reed my entire life, this is a special charity to me. And I know he's upstairs looking down with a big smile on his face. I just know that. And on behalf of the ladies and the men in here, on behalf of Carol Reed and myself, we'd just like to thank each and every one of you who has donated to the Lewis H. Reed Spinal Cord Injury Fund, and to our other charities too, because they're all just as important. When I mentioned a minute ago about close to $60,000 we raised this year, most of that money came out of California. Let's give them a big round of applause. And now I think we may have a couple checks. Chuck?
On behalf of my home area, Portage Lakes Area 2736, I'd like to present you a check for the Lou Reed Spinal Cord Injury earmarked Ford Walking Warrior in an amount of $5,000.
And as a friend of Lou Reed, I knew him personally, and of course, I was an international director a couple times and the state quite a few times. So in the name of the 150,000 plus area and auxiliary members from Ohio, I would like to present this project, $10,000 from Ohio.
Any other checks? Make sure, though, when you do send your money in this next year that to the Lewis H. Reed Spinal Cord Injury Fund, you earmark this for the Spinal Cord Exoskeleton Fund. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. You all attending tonight, and enjoy the rest of your convention. God bless each and every one of you.